Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. First impressions. So I'm about halfway through. And I was recommended this book by a good friend. And I can say that if I wasn't recommended this book by a good friend, I wouldn't have made it this far and I probably wouldn't finish it. Mostly because it's quite a negative theme, and I think you attract what you expect and you surround yourself with, at least that's my experience with the friends and people that I have known in my life, is that the people who are victims seem to always have problems. The people who are thinking they're going to get screwed over always get screwed over. And the loveliest people I know have lovely things happen to them. So I don't generally watch sad movies, I don't generally do this sort of stuff. My personal opinion. But this book has some very interesting stories I didn't know about. I haven't fact-checked it, obviously, but there's some interesting stuff that I have heard about that comes up in this, like the Aztecs having their gold taken, at least I think that's the time they're talking about. Cortez arriving with the Aztecs, and a few other high-profile cases you've probably heard of in recent years, like just before the Black Lives Matter movement, some child sex abuse stuff. And this is what I mean, I don't listen to the news for a reason, and this brings up a lot of stuff that came up in the news. But now the good stuff. What, so far, is very interesting about the takeaway of this book. The premise of this book really is, we are bad at interpreting what strangers talk about, what they're meaning, and what their objectives are. For in some cases, now in the majority of cases we're right, which is why society functions, but there's a few groups of people who are deceitful, untrustworthy, and all this sort of stuff. And it goes through, I think I can best summarize this as, I think this author is saying that the world would be a little better, your life could be a little better if you took a slightly more autistic approach. So a slightly less emotional approach and thoughts about, I can see you and I can see your facial expressions and the words that you're saying, and completely ignore all of that and just go with what has this person done in the past and therefore what are they likely to do in the future. So going off just the data. And I think that is pretty much the sum up of the entire book. But I will continue reading it and get back to you on that. So for someone like me who is probably on that spectrum anyway, I don't really think I'm going to get much out of this other than a broader worldview of how nasty the world is, which is not something I interact with and not something I really want to think about. So for me, I don't think there's an awful lot in this that I will take away, but for some people it might be interesting. I don't know, maybe we'll reaffirm your confirmation bias that the world is awful, which I don't think is a good thing to do anyway. Yeah, a bit of a weird one I've got for you today. Not my usual business chat, but I do like books. So there you go. Summary of Talking to Strangers. My first look is that maybe thinking more autistically, if you're not autistic, might be a more beneficial thing. Like, actually, one of the main characters in this figured out one of the main stories was the guy that figured out the world's largest Ponzi scheme, and the way that they described him is like textbook autistic, and a lot of the traits that I was just reading, I was like, this guy sounds like me. Like, occasionally you tell a joke and the room goes silent, preferred to like not necessarily meet people, a bit socially awkward, all that sort of stuff, which actually that section's not like me, but the rest of what they said is, in terms of being analytical and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, would I recommend this book? Probably not. But it changed one of my very good friend's entire worldview. He didn't say whether it was for good or bad, but I'm always keen to find books that really change people. So this is one from one of those people. There we go. Have a great evening. Peace.